Guy Code with Rena Osware.
Welcome to another episode of The Guy Code. I am Rene Osware. Now, on this episode, we're going to be talking about toxic feminism in Kenya. Now, this request came from a very loyal listener of the podcast, a lady who actually wanted me to cover the effects of toxic feminism in this country, this republic, and how it has affected the men, or what we call here the boy child. Now, I really appreciate this inquiry and request, and I think it's very significant and profound that we cover this topic. Now, let me just get into it. Now, as far as feminism is in Kenya, I think it started in the round the 1990s or 1980s when the second president of this republic, President Daniel Moi, got to build a whole lot of girls' schools and named them after him. And all these girls' schools brought in a lot of female students, and thus led to the increasing population of women in the high institutions. And as far as women who were skilled and well educated came into the workforce, and they started to make ripples out in different industries. And this is now the generation that began this feminism, especially in this republic, Kenya. Now, I think from the 1990s to the early 2000s is when I noticed that there was a lot of emphasis on the girl child. Actually, up to this day, there's a lot of emphasis on the girl child, especially when international organizations like the UN came in to combat, harmful cultural practices such as the early marriages and the female genital mutilation and all that stuff, being married off, which is, is shunned upon, is illegal in this country now. And through that, now they began to have different campaigns and projects targeted primarily for the girl child. Actually, I know that there are some scholarships and some organizations that offer scholarships just exclusively to the girl child. And if there's a very needy boy or a needy boy child who comes from a very vulnerable background, he cannot be able to access those opportunities, which is a very sad situation. And I think that's one of the issues that toxic feminism comes to play, because there are also, sidelining of boy child, when that then don't hear any organization coming in and saying, we have a real, we want to offer scholarships exclusively to boy child, or maybe male children who could be child soldiers or something like that, although it's not common in Kenya, of course. And just offering scholarships to boys, or even sports scholarships or all that, you don't really hear of that. You mainly hear of girls who come from vulnerable backgrounds, and these scholarships are very well funded, almost like their whole education period. And I think that's when we see a lot of toxic feminism, where the boy child is clearly sidelined. So when this lady, you're picking up maybe two children in a household, or in a certain area that is very vulnerable, very needy, in a certain community that's very needy, you pick the girl only to educate fully, and maybe she goes abroad and she gets to study well and she gets all that, and now you leave the men behind. So how can the community really grow together if you're already picking out the girls, you're taking them away, you're educating them abroad? They're well educated ladies. Of course, they will look for well educated men, and they will marry where they will see, maybe where they're working. If they got to work in these NGOs and these international organizations, they get to work there, they will marry those men. They won't come back and marry the men from their communities, because they don't really have much to have in common, since they have actually gone through different experiences, which really doesn't give the kind of impact that I hope these organizations had in mind. And the bad thing is that most of these organizations, and I'm not looking down on them, they really have a lot to do and they do a lot of good stuff, but I don't think they get the full picture of what is needed in a community, especially in the context that they are in. They think they come from a place of they give these communities what they think they should have instead of really getting to know the needs of these communities and where they want to go and how to help them get there. Instead of, there's some things that you do, or there's some things that don't just need a few donations, a few scholarships, and a few food supplies. you know that seems to be the only solution some of these organizations come in: a few food supplies, a few donations, maybe some uniform, or they get like a few sports resources, and they leave assuming that they've made a difference. But really, it's it's not really a big impact considering the cost that they used to come all the way from abroad and uh, in efforts to make an impact, or to make a big change. So I think the first thing that we need to address as a country is that the imbalance as far as funding, as far as support for vulnerable children in this city and in this country, when we're seeing so many institutions coming in and exclusively want to support only the girl child. Even celebrities came in. I've heard about the Demi Lovato, I've heard about the Selena Gomez, these big world superstars invited to just come in and just give support for the girl child initiatives and sidelining the boys. Now we're getting into a society where all these ladies are very well empowered, and they also are looking for well empowered men. But these well empowered men are not there for them. Now, in this country, we are seeing a very big increase in single mothers because these ladies are well educated. They came back thinking now they could get some man who is also well educated and start something. They don't find any, and maybe they come back with a child, or maybe most of them come back with a child, hoping to get married. But now the kind of man that they want or they're looking for is not looking for them, you know, or they're not interested in those kind of men. They're looking for men on that level. Because if you're working on a very high end NGO job and you're looking for a husband, you're definitely looking for one who is at your level or higher, which is, that's natural selection. And how many of those are there, when most of the communities here are not given the same amount of attention as far as education. So now we're seeing a lot of single mothers because they're independent. They just want kids. They can take care of the kids by themselves. But there's a disconnect now. These young boys or these young girls coming from these single mothers, although they're very well taken care of as far as resources, there's a disconnect as far as identity. And although they're saying, in this modern day that you don't need a traditional nuclear family, it is very important that every child has both a father figure and a maternal figure. It's important, even though it's just maybe a relative, but both are needed for a full sense of identity. And I would say that the paternal figure is very important to really ingrain that identity into the child. And since there's that disconnect where now there are more empowered women than men, and these women are more outspoken, and they have the ability to and the capacity to express their feelings and their interests better in these different spaces, in the corporate spaces, even in government. we're getting to a point where now these women get bitter and they feel like, you know, they can demand more. They want more from men who were sidelined from a while ago. They're wondering, okay, why aren't you men as educated and as achieving as I am? Or in fact, I expect you to achieve more, when these men were really trying their best in a system that really doesn't favor them as much as it should. Because the truth is, if you look at the statistics in Kenyan tertiary institutions, as far as women, the intake is mostly women. A majority of it, at least, is mostly women, and even the graduating is mostly women. So where do these men go? These men happen to drop off because different kind of stresses, or they can't handle, to pay off the school fees. Now they have to drop off, and they can't, go and ask for help from any of these institutions to really fund them, unless there's some who give institutions to give scholarships to needy children. But of course, as I said before, they really want more of the girl child instead of the boy child. So we see, and it is a fact, the numbers prove this, that in any graduating class in any of these Kenyan higher learning institutions, most of them are women, because now they have the ability to, finish their education and acquire the skills that they are needed to get into the workplace. And also, we can get into maybe these how women are able to, although it is immoral and many people, society claims it is immoral, but the people who perpetrate this are also part of society, as far as the gold digging culture, what in Kenya we call the sponsor culture, that a lady can find an older man who is willing to fund her lifestyle. Even there's some who go to the extent of giving her loans to start a business or in a career, and therefore, she can kick off a career with any of this. In fact, there was a few internet sensations on, as far as the Kenyan social media space, that have really come up, and I think out of the 5 new ones that have come up in the last 2 years, I think 3, I'm talking about the really big ones, there have been 5, 3 of them are ladies. Some of them have started off at TikTok just from looking pretty and dancing, and next thing you know, they're really brand ambassadors and they're on TV and they're getting all these high profile jobs, where men who have actually qualified to get these jobs are not given a second glance. Because one, they cannot sell, quote unquote, the brand, or they don't have enough value, as much as these female counterparts. So this toxic feminism in this country comes from a place where women do not understand that in this current system, that they kind of have an advantage, where there are organizations from abroad and locally that are seeking to support their education, they're seeking to support their empowerment, they're seeking to support their development, and the men are left behind. And these men are frustrated, and they grow up frustrated, because now society expects them to produce even though they don't have the advantage that these women have. And I think this is a long conversation that we can have as a country, but I think with this episode, I've just touched a bit on what this listener really requested. I could do a follow-up one later on more red pill knowledge, how it affects the red pill knowledge as far as navigating around the Kenyan social space. But that'll be on another episode. Thanks, guys, for listening to me. Until next time, we will talk soon.
Guy Code with Rena Osware.